How much do you really know about the person lying beside you every night? The one who knows your favorite coffee. Your biggest fears. The one who whispers that you'll grow old together. Most people never stop to ask that question. Because love has a strange way of making us ignore the little things. The tiny warning signs. The moments that don't quite make sense. Sophie Bennett never questioned any of it. Not until the honeymoon. Not until paradise became a prison. 3 months earlier. Charleston, South Carolina. A paper coffee cup slipped from someone's hand, sending hot caramel latte splashing across Sophie's white sundress. Oh, no. The man immediately grabbed a stack of napkins from the counter. I'm so sorry. His voice carried genuine panic. I wasn't looking where I was going. Sophie laughed as she looked down at the growing stain. Well. I guess this dress had a good run. I ruined your morning. The stranger shook his head. I can't just walk away. He carefully handed her another napkin. Please, let me replace the dress. You really don't have to. I do. He smiled. And if buying you a new dress sounds too strange. He paused just long enough to make her curious. How about dinner instead? Sophie couldn't help smiling. That's a pretty smooth recovery. I've had 30 seconds to think about it. She laughed. You know what? Okay. The stranger extended his hand. Adrian Hale. Sophie. Nice to finally meet you. He grinned. Even if I had to throw coffee on you first. That dinner turned into breakfast. Breakfast turned into weekends together. Weekends became months. Adrian always remembered everything. Her favorite flowers. Gardenias. Her favorite dessert. Key lime pie. Her favorite movie from childhood. Even the little stories she'd forgotten telling him. He listened. Really listened. When Sophie had a stressful week at work. Dinner was already waiting at home. When she caught the flu. He stayed beside her for 3 days. When anxiety kept her awake. He simply held her hand until sunrise. It felt effortless. Natural. Safe. For the first time in years. She believed she'd found the man she'd been waiting for. 6 months after that spilled coffee. Adrian proposed. Not in front of a crowd. Not during a flashy vacation. Just the two of them. Walking barefoot along Sullivan's Island at sunset. He stopped. Reached into his pocket. Dropped onto one knee. I've spent my whole life looking for peace. He looked into her eyes. And somehow I found it in you. Sophie didn't even let him finish. Yes. 2 weeks before the wedding. Linda Bennett stirred her tea without saying a word. Finally. She looked at her daughter. This feels awfully fast. Sophie smiled. Mom. When you know, you know. Linda sighed. I've lived long enough to know that love isn't always enough. He loves me. I'm sure he does. Linda hesitated. But what do you really know about him? What do you mean? His family. His past. His friends. I've never met a single one. They live all over the country. Sophie shrugged. It's complicated. Linda didn't answer. But someone else did. Her best friend, Megan Foster. I actually looked him up. Sophie groaned. Megan. What? I was curious. And? There isn't much. No social media. No old photos. No college friends. No tagged pictures. She leaned closer. It's almost like Adrian appeared out of nowhere. Sophie rolled her eyes. Some people value privacy. Maybe. Megan wasn't convinced. But every person leaves footprints. Even the quiet ones. And his. She paused. Are almost impossible to find. 3 days later. The Maldives. The seaplane glided across crystal clear water before gently touching the lagoon. Sophie pressed her face against the window. She had never seen water this blue. Tiny islands floated across the Indian Ocean like emerald gems. White villas stretched over the lagoon. Palm trees swayed in the warm breeze. Everything looked unreal. Like a dream. As they stepped onto the wooden dock, smiling resort staff greeted them with fresh coconut water and chilled towels. "Welcome, Mr. and Mrs. Hale." Adrian wrapped an arm around Sophie's waist. "I think this place just ruined every future vacation." She laughed. "Our villa is unbelievable." It sat alone at the very end of the boardwalk. Separated from every other bungalow. Private. Silent. Perfect. Inside. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooked the endless ocean. A private infinity pool shimmered under the afternoon sun. Wooden stairs disappeared directly into the turquoise lagoon below. Sophie spun in excitement. "Oh my God! This is incredible." She reached into her bag for her phone. "My mom is going to lose her mind when she sees this." Before she could unlock the screen, Adrian gently placed his hand over hers. "Can I ask you something?" She looked up. "What?" "For just a few days." He smiled warmly. "Let's disappear. No emails. No work. No social media. No endless notifications. Just you. And me." Sophie hesitated. Then smiled. "You know. That actually sounds perfect." She quickly snapped one picture of the glowing sunset outside. Then she texted her mother. "Made it safely. This place is heaven. I love you. Don't worry about me." She powered off her phone. The screen faded to black. She smiled. Completely unaware that it was the last time anyone in the world would know exactly where she was. Standing a few feet behind her, Adrian watched the phone turn off. A slow smile spread across his face. Not the smile of a loving husband. The smile of a man whose plan had just begun. The first morning in paradise began with the scent of fresh coffee and the sound of gentle waves rolling beneath the villa. Sophie slowly opened her eyes. Golden sunlight filtered through the sheer white curtains, painting soft patterns across the bed. For a few seconds, she forgot where she was. Then she heard Adrian humming quietly on the deck outside. She smiled. Maybe this really was the beginning of the happiest chapter of her life. She slipped into a light summer dress and stepped onto the terrace. Adrian was already waiting. A breakfast table overlooked the endless turquoise lagoon. Fresh tropical fruit. Warm pastries. Freshly squeezed mango juice. Everything looked perfect. "Good morning, Mrs. Hale." He stood and kissed her forehead. "Did you sleep well?" "I don't think I've ever slept this peacefully." "I told you this island was magic." She laughed. "I believe you now." For a while, they simply enjoyed breakfast in silence. The ocean sparkled beneath them. Small tropical fish darted through the crystal clear water below the villa. It felt impossible to imagine anything bad happening here. Then Adrian broke the silence. "What do you think about scuba diving?" Sophie looked up. "Scuba diving? Tomorrow. I booked a private excursion." She smiled. "I didn't know you wanted to dive." "I've always wanted to learn." She frowned slightly. "Really? You told me a few months ago that deep water made you nervous." Adrian chuckled. "I've been thinking about it. I guess I don't want fear deciding what I can or can't do anymore." Sophie reached across the table and squeezed his hand. "I'd love to teach you. I still have my certification from Belize. I haven't dived in years. But it'll come back." His smile widened. "I knew you'd say yes." The rest of the day passed like a postcard. They explored hidden beaches. Fed colorful fish from the dock. Watched stingrays glide beneath the water. Everywhere they looked, people were smiling, laughing, relaxed. Paradise had a strange effect on people. It made them lower their guard. That evening, as the sun melted into the Indian Ocean, Adrian sat quietly watching the horizon. His expression was distant, almost thoughtful. "What are you thinking about?" Sophie asked. He blinked, then smiled again. "Nothing. Just grateful." She leaned against his shoulder. "So am I." The next morning, everything changed. Sophie woke to the sound of coughing. She sat upright. Adrian was sitting on the edge of the bed, holding his stomach. "You okay?" "I don't think so." His face looked pale. "I barely slept. My stomach's killing me." She immediately touched his forehead. "No fever. I probably ate something yesterday. I'm sorry." He forced a weak smile. "I don't think I can dive today." Sophie frowned. "We'll cancel." "No." He shook his head. "You shouldn't waste your vacation because of me. I'm staying with you. I'll be fine. I just need to rest. You go. Enjoy the beach. I'll probably sleep for a few hours." She hesitated. "Are you sure?" "I promise." Reluctantly, she agreed. The beach was almost empty. Only a handful of couples relaxed beneath white umbrellas. Sophie settled into a lounge chair with a novel she had packed weeks earlier. She tried reading, but something kept pulling her thoughts back to Adrian. Yesterday he couldn't stop talking about diving. Now, he didn't even want to leave the villa. It felt odd. Not wrong. Just different. "Excuse me." She looked up. A young Maldivian man wearing a dive instructor's shirt stood beside her. Friendly smile. Sun-bleached hair. "Sorry to bother you. I'm Nassim, the diving instructor." Sophie smiled. "Oh. Hi. Your husband booked a private dive this morning. I wanted to check if everything was all right. He isn't feeling well." She closed her book. "We had to postpone." Nassim nodded sympathetically. "I hope he feels better." Then he smiled again. "If you're already certified, I have something even better." She raised an eyebrow. "Tomorrow morning I'm taking a very small group to Sapphire Reef. The visibility has been incredible this week. Sea turtles, eagle rays, sometimes even reef sharks. Completely harmless. It's one of the most beautiful dive sites in the Maldives." Sophie's eyes lit up. "I haven't been underwater in years. You'll love it. If your husband feels better, I'll reserve 2 spots." He handed her a small business card. 9 o'clock. Meet me at the main pier. I promise. You'll never forget it." Sophie smiled. "I'll ask him tonight. By sunset." Adrian looked almost completely recovered. "I told you." He laughed while pouring 2 glasses of white wine. "Probably just something I ate. I was worried." "I know." He gently touched her hand. "What did you do today?" "I met the diving instructor. Nassim. He invited us to Sapphire Reef tomorrow. They say it's the best dive on the island." For the first time all evening, Adrian stopped smiling. It lasted less than a second. A tiny pause. Almost invisible. Then, the smile returned. "Sapphire Reef? Sounds amazing. You still want to go?" Sophie asked carefully. "I thought you were nervous." "I was." He nodded slowly. "But..." He looked directly into her eyes. "If you're with me, I trust you." She smiled. "I'll let him know." As Sophie reached for the business card, Adrian quietly looked toward the dark ocean outside the villa. His fingers tightened around his wine glass. So tightly. The crystal almost cracked. Tomorrow. Everything would go exactly according to plan. Or so he believed. The morning of the dive couldn't have looked more perfect. The ocean was completely calm. Not a single cloud floated across the bright blue sky. If someone had painted the perfect tropical morning, it would have looked exactly like this. Sophie stood in front of the bedroom mirror, adjusting the straps of her turquoise swimsuit. Adrian walked up behind her. For a moment, he simply watched her reflection. "You look beautiful." She smiled. "I think it's the ocean." "No." He wrapped his arms around her waist. "It's you." She turned toward him. "Still nervous?" "A little." He admitted it with a quiet laugh. "I've never done anything like this." "You'll be fine." She kissed him. "And I'll be right beside you." At exactly 9 o'clock. They reached the resort's private pier. Nassim was already waiting beside a sleek white dive boat. Everything had been prepared. Fresh tanks. Wetsuits. Masks. Regulators. The instructor greeted them with a smile. "Good morning. You picked the perfect day." He looked toward Adrian. "So. First dive?" Adrian nodded. "I'll make sure it's one you'll never forget." Nassim laughed. "I hope for the right reasons." Everyone smiled. Only Adrian didn't. Not completely. During the safety briefing, Nassim patiently explained every step. "Never hold your breath. If something feels wrong." He demonstrated the hand signals. "Signal immediately. We ascend together. No panic. No rushing. The ocean rewards calm people." Adrian listened carefully. Almost too carefully. He asked surprisingly detailed questions. "How long does the air usually last? What happens if someone runs low? How deep are we going?" Nassim answered each one without hesitation. "Around 60 feet. Plenty of air. And I'll be within arm's reach the entire dive." Satisfied? Adrian nodded. Sophie finished checking her own equipment. Out of habit, she inspected every buckle, every hose, every connection. Years had passed since her last dive. But muscle memory never disappears. Everything looked normal. "Want me to carry the camera?" Adrian held up a small waterproof action camera. "We should record this." Sophie smiled. "Absolutely. My mom will love seeing it. I'll clip it to my vest." He reached for the equipment. "You'll have enough to think about." "Thanks." She turned away to adjust her mask. Behind her. For less than 2 seconds. Adrian's hand moved toward her scuba tank. His fingers brushed the valve. A tiny movement. Quick. Almost invisible. Then he stepped back. "Ready." Nassim gave a thumbs up. "Let's go." The boat slowly pulled away from the island. The villas became smaller behind them. Soon, there was nothing except endless ocean. The water changed color as they traveled. Bright turquoise. Then deep sapphire. Finally, a dark blue so rich it almost looked black. Nassim pointed ahead. Sapphire Reef. Even from the surface, the underwater drop-off was visible. It looked like the ocean simply disappeared into darkness. Sophie felt the familiar rush of excitement. She had missed this feeling. The silence. The adventure. The weightlessness. Beside her, Adrian stared into the water. His face revealed nothing. Everyone completed one final equipment check. Tanks? Good. Regulators? Good. Pressure? Full. Nassim personally inspected every diver, including Sophie's. Everything appeared perfect. He smiled. "Let's make some memories." One by one, they entered the water. The warm Indian Ocean surrounded Sophie instantly. She adjusted her mask. Took her first breath through the regulator. Slow. Steady. Comforting. She looked toward Adrian. He floated awkwardly for a few moments before finding his balance. She flashed him the underwater signal. "You okay?" He answered immediately. "I'm okay." Nassim led the descent. 30 feet. 40. 50. Sunlight filtered through the water above them like golden ribbons. Massive coral formations stretched in every direction. Schools of bright tropical fish surrounded the group. A sea turtle drifted silently across the reef. It was breathtaking. Sophie almost forgot the rest of the world existed. She turned toward Adrian. He pointed excitedly at a spotted eagle ray gliding below them. She laughed behind her regulator. Everything felt perfect. Then, something sounded wrong. A faint hiss. She frowned. Took another breath. The airflow felt weaker. Maybe she imagined it. She inhaled again. This time, almost nothing. Her heartbeat instantly doubled. She checked her pressure gauge. The needle was falling. Far too quickly. Impossible. She pulled another breath. Nothing. Only resistance. Her lungs tightened. A surge of panic exploded through her body. She immediately reached for her alternate air procedures. But before she could signal anyone, a hand grabbed her arm. Adrian. He looked directly into her eyes. And for the first time, Sophie didn't see fear. She didn't see concern. She didn't even see surprise. She saw something much worse. Expectation. His grip tightened. Holding her in place. Watching. Waiting. As the last bit of air disappeared from her tank. Panic. Pure. Primal. Instinct. Every diver is trained to fight it. But when your lungs scream for air, training becomes a distant memory. Sophie tried inhaling again. Nothing. Just a dry pull through the regulator. Her chest tightened violently. Her body demanded one thing. Breathe. She reached for the emergency signal. Out of air. Before she could raise her hand, Adrian grabbed her wrist. Firmly. His fingers wrapped around her wetsuit with surprising strength. She looked into his mask. Into his eyes. There was no panic. No confusion. No desperate attempt to help. Only complete. Absolute. Calm. For one horrifying second. Time stopped. He was watching her. Waiting. Almost. Curious. Sophie tried pulling away. He didn't let go. Her heartbeat thundered inside her ears. She kicked upward instinctively. Adrian held her for another second. Then another. Finally. He released her. Nassim reacted instantly. Years of experience took over before panic could spread. He spotted Sophie's frantic movements. Within seconds he was beside her. He shoved his alternate regulator toward her. Take it. She grabbed it immediately. The first breath flooded her lungs like life itself. Air. Sweet. Precious. Air. Nassim wrapped one arm around her shoulder and signaled for a controlled ascent. Slow. Steady. No sudden movements. Adrian followed several feet behind. His movements were strangely composed. Far calmer than any first-time diver should have been after witnessing something like that. Minutes later, they broke the surface. Sophie ripped off her mask. She gasped desperately between violent coughs. Every breath hurt. Every muscle trembled. It's okay. Nassim kept one hand under her buoyancy vest. Slow breaths. You're safe. The dive boat pulled alongside them. Crew members helped everyone aboard. Sophie collapsed onto the deck. Still coughing. Still shaking. Adrian climbed aboard moments later. His face looked pale. What happened? His voice cracked. Sophie. Oh my God. Are you okay? She stared at him. He looked terrified. Concerned. Exactly like any loving husband would. If she hadn't looked into his eyes underwater, she would have believed every second of it. Nassim immediately picked up Sophie's scuba tank. His expression changed almost instantly. He frowned. Then checked it again. Silence. What is it? Sophie asked. He slowly turned the tank toward them. The valve. Everyone looked closer. It wasn't fully opened. Sophie blinked. What? Nassim pointed carefully. It should have been completely open before entering the water. It wasn't. That's why airflow gradually dropped as you descended. Adrian looked genuinely shocked. How could that happen? You checked everything. I did. Nassim's forehead tightened. I always do. No one spoke. Only the sound of waves gently hitting the side of the boat. Finally, Adrian lowered his eyes. Maybe. He swallowed. Maybe I accidentally touched it while helping her with the equipment. His voice sounded full of guilt. I'm so sorry. I had no idea. Sophie looked at him. Really looked. He seemed devastated. Ashamed. Exactly how an innocent person should react. And yet, she couldn't erase what she'd seen. Those eyes. Cold. Patient. Watching her run out of air. The boat turned back toward the resort. Nobody talked much during the ride. Sophie sat wrapped in a towel. The adrenaline slowly faded, leaving something far worse behind. Questions. She replayed everything again. Every second. Every movement. Adrian insisting on carrying the camera. Adrian standing behind her before the dive. His hand near her tank. His grip underwater. Then, another thought struck her. The camera. She looked around the boat. The action camera. Adrian frowned. What about it? You clipped it onto your vest. He looked down. Touched his harness. His expression changed. It must have fallen off. When? He shook his head. I don't know. Everything happened so fast. I'm sorry. Sophie stared at the empty mounting clip. The one piece of evidence that could have shown exactly what happened underwater was gone. Lost somewhere. 60 feet below the surface. Or so Adrian claimed. Back at the villa. Silence filled every room. The luxurious honeymoon suite suddenly felt different. Smaller. Heavier. Like the walls themselves were watching. Adrian uncorked a bottle of white wine. He poured 2 glasses. You've been through a lot. You should relax. Sophie accepted the glass. But didn't drink. She looked out toward the dark ocean instead. The water was calm again. Beautiful. Peaceful. Completely innocent. It was hard to believe it had almost become her grave. You're quiet. Adrian sat beside her. I'm just tired. He smiled gently. It was an accident. She nodded slowly. Maybe. He reached for her hand. You believe me. Don't you? For the first time since they'd met. Sophie didn't answer immediately. Instead, she remembered one tiny detail. This morning, before they boarded the boat, Adrian had asked more questions about emergency air procedures than anyone else. Not because he was nervous. Because he wanted to know exactly how long someone could survive without air. A chill ran through her body despite the tropical heat. Maybe It hadn't been an accident at all. Maybe someone had expected her never to come back to the surface. Sophie barely slept. Every time she closed her eyes, she was back underwater, watching Adrian's face through his diving mask. Not frightened. Not confused. Patient. Waiting. Around midnight, she opened her eyes. Adrian's breathing was slow and steady. Fast asleep. Or at least, it sounded that way. She carefully slipped out of bed. Every floorboard suddenly felt louder than it had that morning. The villa was silent. Only the distant sound of waves breaking beneath the wooden deck filled the darkness. She walked toward Adrian's travel backpack. Her heart pounded so hard she was afraid it would wake him. "What are you doing?" The thought echoed inside her head. "He's your husband. You're invading his privacy." But another voice answered. "He might have tried to kill you today." Her shaking fingers slowly unzipped the bag. Inside, nothing unusual. Sunscreen. A paperback novel. A wallet. Charging cables. A passport. She hesitated. Then opened the wallet. Credit cards. Cash. Driver's license. Everything looked perfectly normal. Until she noticed a folded photograph tucked deep inside a hidden compartment. It looked old. Worn. Like it had been carried for years. Sophie carefully unfolded it. A smiling blonde woman stood beside Adrian on a tropical beach. Both were wearing white. Both looked deeply in love. Behind them, another overwater resort. Another paradise. She turned the photo over. Her stomach dropped. Written in faded blue ink were the words: Claire and Adrian. Forever begins here. Maldives, 2022. Sophie froze. Claire? He had never mentioned anyone named Claire. Never. Not once. A floorboard creaked behind her. "What are you looking at?" She spun around. Adrian stood in the doorway. Barefoot. One hand resting against the frame. His expression was unreadable. Sophie slowly held up the photograph. "Who is she?" For several long seconds, neither of them spoke. Finally, Adrian sighed. "My wife." The words landed like a punch to the chest. "You were married?" "Yes." "And you never told me?" "It wasn't something I liked talking about." His voice remained calm. Almost rehearsed. "What happened to her?" Another silence. Then she drowned. Sophie's pulse quickened. "When?" "4 years ago." "Where?" He looked toward the ocean outside. "On vacation." Her hands began trembling. "Vacation? Where?" Adrian met her eyes. "The Maldives." The room suddenly felt ice cold. "What happened?" "There was an accident. She went diving. The equipment failed." Sophie felt every hair on her arm stand up. "Diving?" He nodded. "The regulator malfunctioned." She panicked. "I couldn't reach her in time." His face showed sadness. Perfectly measured sadness. The kind people practice in front of mirrors. Sophie whispered. "Just like today?" Adrian's expression didn't change. "What do you mean?" "My air disappeared. Your wife drowned while diving. You expect me to believe that's just a coincidence?" His eyes narrowed slightly. "I think today scared you. You're not thinking clearly." "No." She slowly stepped backward. "I think today made me see clearly for the first time." The smile disappeared from Adrian's face. Completely. The warm, charming husband she'd fallen in love with vanished. In his place stood someone else. Someone colder. Someone calculating. He took one slow step toward her. "Give me the photograph." His voice was quiet. But it wasn't a request. Sophie tightened her grip. No. Another step. I said. Give me the photograph. She didn't move. You lied to me. I omitted something. You hid an entire marriage. I was protecting myself. No. She shook her head. You were protecting your story. For the first time. A flicker of irritation crossed Adrian's face. He reached forward suddenly. His hand clamped around her wrist. Hard. Pain shot through her arm. Adrian. His grip tightened. You're hurting me. Give it to me. No. For a split second. Their eyes locked. And Sophie realized something terrifying. The man standing in front of her wasn't angry because she'd invaded his privacy. He was angry. Because she'd found something. He never intended anyone to see. Outside. The moon reflected across the still waters surrounding Villa 28. Everything looked peaceful. Beautiful. Silent. But inside that luxurious honeymoon villa, Sophie finally understood the truth. The diving incident hadn't been the first time. It had been a rehearsal. Or worse. A pattern. And if Claire had truly died the same way, then Sophie wasn't married to a grieving widower. She was living alone. With a man who might already have gotten away with murder. Neither of them moved. The only sound inside the villa was the slow rhythm of the waves beneath the wooden floor. Adrian's hand still gripped Sophie's wrist. Painfully. His eyes never left the photograph. Last chance. His voice was calm. Almost emotionless. Give it to me. Sophie slowly shook her head. No. For another long second. Neither of them blinked. Then. To Sophie's surprise. Adrian let go. He took a step back. Smiled. I'm sorry. She frowned. What? I shouldn't have grabbed you. He rubbed the back of his neck. You caught me off guard. I never wanted to tell you about Claire like this. His voice softened. I spent years trying to forget. Sophie said nothing. I loved her. He looked toward the ocean. Losing her destroyed me. His shoulders dropped. I thought burying the past would help me move on. He looked back at Sophie. Then I met you. And I wanted a fresh start. The performance was flawless. His eyes even watered slightly. Months earlier, Sophie would have believed every word. Tonight, she watched him like a stranger. Something was wrong. Not what he was saying, but how perfectly he was saying it. Almost. Too perfectly. I'm exhausted. He sighed. Let's stop fighting. We'll talk tomorrow. He kissed her forehead. Exactly as he always had. Then walked calmly back into the bedroom. A few seconds later, the bedroom door closed. Sophie remained frozen in the living room. Her pulse still raced. She looked down at the photograph again. Claire's smile. The resort behind them. The matching white clothes. It looked almost identical to their honeymoon. Same destination. Same luxury villa. Same romantic pictures. The similarities made her stomach turn. She quietly slipped the photograph into her own beach bag instead of returning it. Something told her she might need it. The next morning, Adrian behaved as if nothing had happened. He prepared breakfast. Asked how she slept. Even joked about booking a couple's massage. The version of him she had fallen in love with had returned overnight. But now, every smile looked rehearsed. Every kind gesture felt calculated. Every compliment sounded like part of a script. Sophie forced herself to smile back. She had made one important decision. She couldn't let him know she was afraid. Not yet. If Adrian truly wanted to hurt her, The most dangerous thing she could do was let him realize she'd figured it out. After breakfast, Adrian stretched. I think I'll stay by the pool today. You should enjoy the island. You've barely explored anything. Sophie nodded casually. Maybe I'll walk around the resort. Good. He smiled. I'll be here when you get back. She kissed his cheek. I won't be long. As she walked away, she resisted the urge to look back. She could feel his eyes following her. Instead of heading toward the beach, Sophie walked directly to the dive center. Nassim was organizing equipment when he noticed her. Good morning. He smiled. Feeling better? Physically? She answered quietly. Yes. His smile faded. Is something wrong? Sophie glanced around to make sure nobody else was nearby. I need to ask you something. Nassim immediately sensed the seriousness in her voice. They walked away from the guests, toward a quiet section of the dock. What is it? She took a deep breath. Yesterday, when my air stopped. Was it really just an accident? The instructor remained silent. Too silent. You hesitated. Sophie noticed. Why? Nassim looked toward the resort buildings, making sure no one was listening. Then he lowered his voice. Officially, it was an accident. Her heart sank. But, he continued, there was something that didn't make sense. What? I checked your equipment before the dive. Everything was perfect. And afterward? I inspected the tank again. He hesitated. The valve wasn't just partially closed. It looked. He searched for the right words. Like someone had adjusted it very carefully. Sophie's blood ran cold. You mean? I don't know. He interrupted quickly. I'm not accusing anyone. But after 20 years of diving, I've never seen a valve move by itself. She stared at him, unable to speak. I reported it. He continued quietly. But resort management dismissed it. They said mechanical failure. They didn't want guests getting scared. Sophie slowly reached into her bag. She pulled out the old photograph. Have you ever seen this woman? Nassim studied it. His expression changed instantly. I think I have. Sophie leaned closer. Where? I'm not completely sure. But I remember a couple. Several years ago. The man looked exactly like your husband. They stayed here. Or at least. He frowned. At a nearby private island. Sophie felt her knees weaken. What happened to them? Nassim looked directly into her eyes. The woman. He swallowed. Never went home. A cold breeze swept across the dock. For the first time since arriving in paradise, Sophie realized something terrifying. This wasn't the first honeymoon. It wasn't even the second. It was simply the latest. Sophie couldn't breathe. What do you mean? She never went home? Nassim folded his arms. I'm not 100% certain it was your husband. It was a few years ago. But faces stick with you in this job. Especially repeat guests. He was unforgettable. Sophie felt her stomach tighten. Why? He asked strange questions. What kind of questions? Nassim looked around again before answering. He wasn't interested in marine life. He wasn't asking about coral. Or fish. He wanted to know how dangerous diving accidents usually are. How often people panic. How quickly someone loses consciousness. Sophie's face turned pale. The same questions he asked yesterday. Nassim nodded slowly. I remembered them after your incident. Silence settled between them. The waves gently rocked against the dock. Paradise suddenly felt very far away. There's something else. Nassim lowered his voice even more. After your dive. I went back to inspect your equipment. You said that. No. I mean after everyone left. Alone. Sophie listened carefully. I took photographs. Her eyes widened. You did? I wasn't comfortable signing the maintenance report. So I documented everything first. Sophie's heartbeat quickened. You still have them? Nassim nodded. Yes. They're on my phone. He unlocked the screen and opened several close-up images. The valve. The threads. Tiny fresh scratches around the adjustment wheel. They weren't there before the dive. Sophie stared silently. Someone had manipulated it. Deliberately. Carefully. Professionally. Can you send these to me? Nassim hesitated. I shouldn't. If management finds out, I could lose my job. I understand. Sophie whispered. But if someone tried to kill me, they may try again. The instructor looked at her for several seconds. Then, he made a decision. He tapped share. My personal number. If anything feels wrong, call me. A notification appeared on Sophie's phone. 4 photographs. The only evidence she had. For now. As Sophie walked back toward the villas, her phone vibrated again. An unknown number. She frowned. Hello? A woman's voice answered. Soft. Professional. Mrs. Hale? Yes. My name is Monica. I'm calling from Harbor Shield Life Insurance. Sophie's step stopped instantly. I'm sorry. What insurance? There are a few routine details regarding the travel policy issued before your wedding. Travel policy? She barely remembered signing anything. Adrian had handled almost all of the paperwork. I'm afraid you've got the wrong person. I don't think so. The woman sounded confused. Our records show your husband purchased a comprehensive life insurance policy for both of you 6 weeks ago. Sophie's heart skipped. I don't remember that. It included accidental death coverage. The words echoed inside her head. Accidental death. Would you happen to know if your beneficiary information is correct? My beneficiary? Yes. In the event of your death, the policy pays directly to your listed beneficiary. Sophie's mouth suddenly felt dry. And? Who is that? There was a short pause as the representative checked the file. Your husband. Mr. Adrian Hale. The world around Sophie became strangely quiet. The laughter from nearby tourists faded. The sound of the ocean disappeared. Only one sentence remained inside her mind. In the event of your death. She barely remembered ending the call. Her hands were shaking. She walked straight back to the villa. Slowly. Trying to appear normal. Adrian was lying beside the infinity pool. Sunglasses. A tropical drink. The perfect honeymoon husband. He smiled the moment he saw her. There you are. I was starting to miss you. Sophie forced herself to smile. I stopped by the gift shop. Find anything good? Just souvenirs. He nodded. Come sit with me. She did. Because she had to. Because now. She knew something Adrian didn't. She knew about the insurance. She knew about Claire. She had photographs of the damaged valve. And for the first time, she understood exactly why he had rushed their relationship. Why he wanted an isolated honeymoon. Why he insisted on turning off her phone. It had never been about romance. It had been about making sure no one would hear her scream. That evening, while Adrian showered, Sophie's phone vibrated once more. A text message from an unknown number. There was no greeting. No explanation. Just one sentence. If you want to stay alive, don't spend another night alone with your husband. Sophie stared at the screen. Then, very slowly, she looked toward the bathroom door. The shower was still running. But for the first time, she wondered. Was Adrian really inside? Or had he already stepped out? Without making a sound? Sophie's heart nearly stopped. The text message remained on the screen. If you want to stay alive, don't spend another night alone with your husband. No name. No explanation. Just those 12 words. She immediately looked toward the bathroom. The shower was still running. Steam drifted beneath the door. For a second, she considered running. Right now. Straight out of the villa. But then another thought hit her. If Adrian noticed, he'd know she'd figured everything out. And desperate people made dangerous mistakes. She deleted the message. Cleared it from the trash folder. Then calmly placed her phone back on the table. Seconds later, the bathroom door opened. Adrian stepped out wearing a white linen shirt. Smiling. You look like you've seen a ghost. Sophie forced a laugh. I was just reading the news. Anything interesting? Not really. He kissed her cheek. I'm starving. Let's have dinner. The resort restaurant overlooked the ocean. Live music floated through the warm evening air. Couples laughed over candlelit tables. Waiters carried fresh seafood and expensive wine. It looked like every honeymoon advertisement ever made. Adrian raised his glass. To us. Sophie lifted hers. To us. Their glasses touched. She pretended to sip. But never swallowed. Something inside her refused to drink anything he handed her. Adrian smiled. You've been quiet today. Just tired. You've seemed distracted ever since the dive. She looked into his eyes. I'm still thinking about it. He nodded sympathetically. I don't blame you. If I hadn't insisted we go, none of it would have happened. The apology sounded perfect. Almost rehearsed. Again. As dessert arrived, Sophie's phone vibrated. Another unknown number. She excused herself. I'll be right back. She walked toward the empty beach behind the restaurant before answering. Hello? A man's voice. Low. Calm. Mrs. Hale? Yes. My name is Daniel Harper. I'm a private investigator. Sophie's pulse quickened. I think you've got the wrong number. I don't. I was hired yesterday. By your mother. Everything around her suddenly became very quiet. My mother? She became worried after you stopped answering. I've been looking into your husband. Sophie's grip tightened around the phone. And? A long pause. I don't think Adrian Hale is his real name. Her heart pounded. What are you talking about? The driver's license is real. The passport is real. But the identity only exists from about 5 years ago. Sophie's knees weakened. What does that mean? It means someone with money and connections can become someone else. She leaned against a palm tree. I also found something else. What? There was another woman. Sophie's eyes closed. I know. You do? I found a photograph. Daniel continued. Her name wasn't Claire Hale. It was Claire Donovan. So he changed her name too? No. He changed his. Sophie's breath caught. Claire Donovan died during a diving accident in the Maldives. 4 years ago. The case was ruled accidental. But. Daniel paused. She also had a $2 million life insurance policy. Exactly like hers. When I dug deeper. Daniel continued. I found something even stranger. There was another engagement before Claire. The wedding never happened. The woman disappeared. Disappeared? No death certificate. No marriage record. Nothing. She vanished. Sophie's skin crawled. Do you know her name? Rachel Morgan. I've been trying to find her for 2 years. You think she's alive? I don't know. But if she is, she's hiding for a reason. Suddenly, Daniel's voice changed. Mrs. Hale. Listen carefully. If Adrian realizes you're suspicious, he won't wait. What do I do? Don't confront him. Don't tell him what you know. I'm contacting Maldivian police. But they're over an hour away. Sophie's eyes widened. An hour? You need to stay alive until they arrive. The call ended. She stood alone on the moonlit beach. The waves gently rolled onto the white sand. Families laughed nearby. Someone was proposing farther down the shoreline. It all looked so normal. So beautiful. Yet only a few hundred feet away. Inside Villa 28. A man might already be planning how to kill her. Again. When Sophie returned, Adrian was waiting outside the restaurant. I was getting worried. He smiled warmly. Everything okay? She nodded. My mom. She just wanted to check in. He laughed. Mothers never stop worrying. No. Sophie smiled back. They don't. As they walked toward their villa, she secretly slipped her phone into silent mode, opened her location settings, and shared her live location with Daniel, her mother, and the number Nassim had given her. Just in case. She didn't notice Adrian glancing over her shoulder. Just long enough to realize she was using her phone. His smile never faded. But something behind his eyes changed. He had noticed. And from that moment on, Sophie was no longer the only one pretending. Sophie barely slept. She kept her eyes closed. Her breathing slow and steady. Pretending to be asleep. Beside her, Adrian hadn't moved for nearly 20 minutes. Or at least, she thought he hadn't. Then, very slowly, the mattress shifted. Almost imperceptibly. Sophie resisted every instinct to open her eyes. She heard the soft creak of the wooden floor. One careful step. Then another. Adrian was walking through the villa. Without turning on a single light. A drawer opened. Closed. Metal clicked softly against wood. Then, silence. A minute later, she heard the bedroom door close. Only then did she dare open her eyes. The room was empty. Moonlight spilled across the bed. Her heart hammered inside her chest. Where had he gone? She quietly slipped out of bed. Barefoot. Moving as silently as possible. She crossed the living room. The front door was slightly open. Outside, the boardwalk stretched across the dark lagoon. No sign of Adrian. Only the sound of water beneath the wooden planks. Then, she noticed movement farther down the walkway. A flashlight. Someone was standing near the end of the pier. She stepped outside carefully, staying in the shadows. As she moved closer, she recognized Adrian. He wasn't alone. Another man stood beside him. One of the resort employees. Maintenance uniform. Neither of them noticed Sophie hiding behind one of the support columns. She couldn't hear every word. Only fragments. Tomorrow. Everything is ready. The current is stronger after sunrise. The employee looked nervous. I don't like this. Adrian reached into his pocket. Folded cash changed hands. A thick envelope. The employee glanced around before taking it. No one can know. Adrian's voice was calm. No one will. The man nodded. Then disappeared into the darkness. Sophie remained frozen. Why would her husband secretly meet a maintenance worker? At 2 o'clock in the morning? She hurried back to the villa before Adrian returned. Slipped into bed. Closed her eyes. Less than 3 minutes later. The mattress moved again. Adrian quietly lay beside her. As if he'd never left. He gently brushed a strand of hair away from her face. "I love you," he whispered. Sophie felt tears filling her eyes. Not from love. From terror. The next morning. Adrian seemed unusually cheerful. "I've got a surprise." He poured coffee into her cup. "What kind of surprise?" "I booked us a private boat." She froze for a fraction of a second. "A boat?" "Just the two of us." He smiled. "We'll visit a tiny sandbank about 40 minutes from here. No tourists. No crowds. Just endless ocean." Every alarm inside Sophie's mind went off. "When?" "This afternoon." She forced another smile. "Sounds wonderful." Inside. She was screaming. The moment Adrian stepped away to answer a phone call. Sophie pulled out her phone. She texted Daniel. "He has planned a private boat trip today. I think something is going to happen." Less than 10 seconds later. Her phone vibrated. "Do not go." Another message followed immediately. "Police are on their way but they need more time. Keep him in public if you can." She looked toward Adrian. He was already walking back. "What are you smiling at?" "My mom." She lied effortlessly. "She keeps sending honeymoon jokes." He laughed. "Tell her we're having the time of our lives." Just before lunch. Someone knocked on the villa door. 3 quick knocks. Adrian opened it. Outside stood Nassim. "I hope I'm not interrupting." He smiled politely. "I wanted to return something." He held up a waterproof dive flashlight. "I believe one of our crew accidentally packed this with your equipment." Adrian frowned. "We don't own one." "No." Nassim nodded. "My mistake." He turned toward Sophie. "But since I'm here, I wanted to ask how you're feeling." "I'm much better," she answered. For one brief second. Nassim looked directly into her eyes. Then almost invisibly. He tapped his own wrist twice. A signal. Sophie frowned. Her watch. She looked down. Her smartwatch displayed a new notification. Bluetooth file received. She hadn't accepted anything. Confused. She waited until Adrian returned inside. Then secretly opened the notification. A single video file. Recorded from a security camera. Timestamp. 2:14 a.m. She pressed play. The footage showed the resort maintenance dock. There was Adrian. Handing an envelope of cash. To the same maintenance employee she'd seen during the night. The camera had no audio. But one detail was unmistakable. The employee handed Adrian a small orange life jacket. Adrian opened it. Looked inside. Smiled. Then nodded. The video ended. Sophie's blood turned to ice. Why would someone pay cash for a life jacket? In the middle of the night? Unless the life jacket was never meant to save anyone. She slowly raised her eyes. Across the room. Adrian was watching her. Smiling. Holding 2 boat tickets in his hand. Ready for our little adventure? Sophie forced herself to smile. As ready as I'll ever be. Adrian laughed. I knew you'd love the idea. Inside. She was already planning how to survive it. The video from the security camera had confirmed one thing. Whatever Adrian was planning. It wasn't spontaneous. He had prepared for it. Carefully. Patiently. Just like everything else. The private speedboat waited at the end of the dock. Its captain was already checking the engine. A quiet Maldivian man in his 50s. His name tag read. Hassan. He smiled politely. Good afternoon. The weather couldn't be better. Sophie glanced around. Only 3 people were on board. Herself. Adrian. The captain. No one else. Exactly the kind of isolation Adrian wanted. As the boat pulled away from the resort, the island slowly disappeared behind them. Within 20 minutes, there was nothing left except endless ocean. Blue in every direction. No other boats. No jet skis. No tourists. Just silence. Adrian stood beside the railing with one arm around Sophie's shoulders. Beautiful. He whispered. It really is. She answered. Then quietly looked toward Captain Hassan. He was focused on steering. Completely unaware of what might happen behind him. Another 20 minutes passed. Finally, a tiny strip of white sand appeared on the horizon. It looked like it had been dropped into the middle of the ocean. No trees. No buildings. Just brilliant white sand surrounded by crystal clear water. Our own private island. Adrian smiled. I saved the best surprise for last. The boat slowed. Captain Hassan anchored a short distance away. The tide will stay calm for about an hour. We'll wait here. Adrian nodded. Perfect. He turned toward Sophie. Come on. They climbed into ankle-deep water and walked onto the untouched sandbank. It was breathtaking. Completely deserted. The ocean stretched endlessly in every direction. No witnesses. No help. Nowhere to run. Adrian spread out a beach blanket. Opened a small picnic basket. Fresh fruit. Champagne. Chocolate-covered strawberries. The perfect honeymoon afternoon. If someone had seen them from a distance, they would have envied the couple. No one would have guessed. One of them was calculating how to survive. The other was calculating how to kill. I have another surprise. Adrian reached into the picnic basket. He pulled out a small velvet box. Sophie's heartbeat quickened. Another ring? He opened it. Inside, a delicate gold necklace shimmered in the sunlight. I wanted to give you something special. He walked behind her. Turn around. She hesitated. Then slowly obeyed. As he fastened the necklace around her neck, she noticed something strange. The clasp felt unusually heavy. Metal. Much heavier than a normal necklace. What is this? She asked. A family keepsake. He answered softly. It belonged to someone very important. Claire. The thought flashed through her mind instantly. Was she wearing Claire's necklace? Or someone else's? Let's take a swim. Adrian suddenly suggested. The water looks perfect. Sophie's pulse raced. I think I'll stay here. Oh, come on. He smiled. We're surrounded by the clearest water in the world. I'm tired. He stepped closer. Please. His voice remained calm. Almost too calm. I really want this memory with you. Memory. That word echoed inside her mind. She remembered the insurance. Claire. The dive. The secret meeting. The modified equipment. The anonymous warning. Every piece fit together now. He wanted one final accident. One without scuba tanks. One without evidence. One where the current could simply carry her away. Suddenly, Captain Hassan shouted from the boat. Sir. Adrian turned. What is it? The current is changing faster than expected. We should leave soon. Adrian's expression darkened for just a moment. We have time. Hassan looked uncertain. I don't think it's safe. It'll only take a few minutes. Adrian answered firmly. The captain reluctantly returned to the boat. Sophie noticed something important. Hassan looked uncomfortable. Almost. Concerned. Adrian smiled again. Just 5 minutes in the water. He extended his hand. I promise. Sophie stared at it. If she refused, he would know she was afraid. If she accepted, she might never leave the ocean alive. Then, her smartwatch vibrated against her wrist. One silent notification. She discreetly glanced at the screen. Daniel, police boat is 15 minutes away. Stay where people can see you. Do not enter deep water. 15 minutes. She only had to survive. 15 more minutes. She looked back at Adrian. Slowly took his hand. And smiled. Okay. She said quietly. But let's stay close to shore. Adrian smiled wider than he had all week. Of course. As they walked toward the water, Sophie noticed something floating a few yards offshore. An orange life jacket. The same color as the one Adrian had received during the midnight meeting. Except, it wasn't floating normally. It was partially submerged. As though something incredibly heavy had been hidden inside it. And Adrian was leading her straight toward it. The life jacket drifted lazily with the current. Bright orange. Perfectly ordinary. At first glance. But Sophie couldn't stop staring at it. Something wasn't right. Instead of floating high on the surface, it sat unusually low in the water. Almost as if something inside it was pulling it down. Adrian noticed where she was looking. Strange. He smiled. Someone must have lost it. Sophie forced herself to nod. Yeah. It happens. But she remembered the security footage. The maintenance worker. The envelope full of cash. The exact same orange life jacket. This wasn't an accident. It had been placed here. Waiting. The water reached Sophie's knees. Warm. Crystal clear. Small tropical fish darted around their feet. From a distance, it looked peaceful. Romantic. Perfect. Adrian squeezed her hand. Come a little farther. She stopped walking. I think this is deep enough. He laughed. You're not scared now, are you? She smiled carefully. After yesterday? I think I have the right to be. He stepped closer. So do I. I almost lost you. His voice sounded sincere. Painfully sincere. I couldn't live with myself if anything happened to you. Every word felt like poison. Another step. The water reached Sophie's waist. The current was stronger now. She could feel it gently pulling against her legs. Captain Hassan suddenly stood on the deck of the boat. Sir. His voice carried across the water. The tide is changing. We really need to leave. Adrian didn't even look back. 2 more minutes. His tone had changed. It wasn't a request. It was an order. Captain Hassan hesitated. Something about the situation clearly bothered him. Adrian slowly pointed toward the floating life jacket. Would you grab that? Sophie looked at him. What? It'll probably drift away. We should bring it back. She didn't move. It's closer to you. He smiled. I think you're a better swimmer. The smile never reached his eyes. Every instinct inside Sophie screamed. Don't touch it. Then, she noticed something else. A thin fishing line. Almost invisible beneath the water. It stretched away from the life jacket. Toward the deeper part of the lagoon. She narrowed her eyes. The line disappeared beneath the surface. Attached to something heavy. Very heavy. A horrifying realization hit her. The life jacket wasn't meant to save someone. It was bait. If someone picked it up, the hidden weight would instantly drag them off balance into the stronger current beyond the sandbank. Wearing heavy beach clothes. already surprised. They could easily disappear beneath the surface before anyone reacted. And afterward, it would look like nothing more than a tragic accident. Exactly the kind Adrian preferred. Sophie. His voice became firmer. The jacket. She slowly turned toward him. No. For the first time. His smile disappeared completely. What did you say? I said. She took one step backward. No. Silence. The wind seemed to stop. Even the waves felt quieter. Adrian stared at her. Expressionless. Then. He laughed. A soft laugh. Almost disappointed. I was hoping you'd make this easier. Sophie's blood froze. So it was true. She whispered. You killed Claire. He didn't answer immediately. Instead, he looked out across the endless ocean. You know, he said quietly. People always believe love makes them special. They think he'd never hurt me. He smiled. But people are predictable. They trust. They sign whatever you put in front of them. They follow wherever you lead them. They believe every beautiful lie. Because they want to. Sophie's eyes filled with tears. How many? He looked back at her. For the first time. There was no mask. No charm. No warmth. Only emptiness. Enough. He answered calmly. To know exactly how this ends. Then. Without warning. He shoved her. Hard. Sophie lost her footing instantly. The current grabbed her legs. She fell backward into the deeper channel. The hidden fishing line wrapped around her ankle. The weighted life jacket rolled toward her. Pulling. Dragging. Straight into deeper water. She screamed. Captain Hassan spun around instantly. Hey! Adrian didn't move. He simply watched. Exactly. As he had underwater. Waiting. Suddenly. A powerful engine roared across the lagoon. Another speedboat appeared from behind a nearby reef. Blue emergency lights flashed across the water. A loudspeaker echoed across the ocean. Police. Do not move. Adrian's head snapped toward the sound. 3 officers leaped from the approaching boat. At the same exact moment, Captain Hassan dove into the water after Sophie. Everything happened at once. The perfect plan had just fallen apart. Everything exploded into chaos. The calm turquoise lagoon turned into a frenzy of shouting. Engines. And crashing waves. Sophie disappeared beneath the surface. The weighted line tightened around her ankle, dragging her toward the deeper channel. Salt water rushed into her mouth. She fought desperately to reach the surface. But every kick only pulled her farther down. For one terrifying moment, she thought, this is how Claire died. Captain Hassan didn't hesitate. He dove straight into the water. Years of navigating Maldivian currents had taught him exactly how they behaved. Instead of swimming directly toward Sophie, he circled behind her, avoiding the strongest pull. Within seconds he reached her. He grabbed her shoulder. Then saw the fishing line wrapped tightly around her ankle. What the? He pulled a dive knife from his belt. One quick motion. The line snapped. The weighted life jacket sank immediately into the dark blue water below, vanishing forever. The current released Sophie instantly. Hassan pulled her toward the surface. She burst through the water coughing violently. Air had never tasted so good. Meanwhile, the police boat slammed against the edge of the sandbank. 3 officers rushed toward Adrian. Sir! Don't move. For a brief moment, he simply stood there. Completely still. Then, he smiled. The same charming smile Sophie had fallen in love with months earlier. You've made a mistake. One officer reached for the handcuffs. Before he could grab him, Adrian turned and sprinted. Straight into the ocean. "He's running!" one of the officers shouted. Adrian dove beneath the surface, swimming away from the sandbank. Fast. Much faster than anyone expected. "He knows where the reef drops off," Captain Hassan yelled. "He'll disappear in those caves." Two officers immediately jumped into the water. The chase began. Sophie watched from the shoreline, wrapped in a rescue blanket. Her entire body shook. Daniel Harper's speedboat had arrived only moments behind the police. He ran toward her. "Are you hurt?" She could barely answer. She looked toward the ocean. "He killed Claire." Daniel nodded quietly. "I know." "You knew?" "We found the files this morning." He opened a waterproof folder. There wasn't just Claire. Sophie looked at him. There were 3. Her heart stopped. "What?" Daniel slowly spread several photographs across the blanket. 3 smiling women. 3 different names. 3 different years. Each standing beside the same man. Different hairstyle. Different beard. Different last name. But the same eyes. The same smile. The same predator. He changed identities after every death. Daniel said. New state. New career. New friends. New wife. And every victim had one thing in common. Sophie whispered. Life insurance. Daniel nodded. Millions of dollars. One of the police officers suddenly shouted from the water. There. Nearly 100 yards away. Adrian surfaced beside a rocky reef. He pulled himself onto the rocks. Looked back once. Their eyes met across the distance. Sophie expected fear. Panic. Desperation. Instead, he smiled again. Then, he jumped. Not into the ocean, but into a narrow opening hidden beneath the rocks. A sea cave. By the time officers reached it, he was gone. 3 days later. The Maldives Police Headquarters. Inspector Zion Latif placed a thick investigation file on the table. We searched every nearby island. Every marina. Every private yacht. Nothing. Daniel frowned. So he escaped. For now. The inspector nodded. But not forever. He slid another document across the table. Adrian's fingerprints. Or rather, a long list of fingerprints. Each connected to a different identity. Different passports. Different names. Different states. The same man. For nearly 12 years. He had been disappearing. Only to become someone new. 6 months later. Charleston. Autumn had arrived. The ocean breeze felt different now. Colder. Sophie stood on the beach where Adrian had proposed. She held Claire's photograph one last time. Then placed it inside an envelope addressed to Claire's parents. They deserved the truth. All of it. No more lies. No more unanswered questions. Her phone rang. Inspector Zion. We have an update. Sophie's heart skipped. Did you find him? There was a short silence. Not yet. But yesterday. Someone tried to open a new life insurance policy. She closed her eyes. Under his name? No. A different name. He has changed identities again. Sophie's fingers tightened around the phone. Then he's looking for someone else. I'm afraid so. After ending the call, she stood quietly, watching the waves. The nightmare wasn't completely over. Somewhere. Someone would eventually meet a handsome stranger. Someone charming. Someone thoughtful. Someone who remembered every little detail. Someone who seemed too perfect. And unless they recognize the warning signs, they might never realize. They weren't falling in love. They were becoming. The next chapter. The next honeymoon. The next victim.